We don't want to be caged or locked in a box. It's about what are they needing. I feel her within the meditations that we do, right?
Today we have Shananda with us. Both of us are Devi Sadhakis. We met in the Gurukulam course called Piranya Garba. And we have been going on a womb spirituality pilgrimage for over a year. We're going to talk about the silent pressure to be always perfect, powerful, to be always healing. This flow of people telling us that we need to do that, there's this energy within us that always say that we have to be perfect. But is that
Yeah.
true?
Yes, it's been quite the journey, and I'm just grateful to be at this point, in my life, and knowing that I still have a long ways to go. Just how do we integrate all of, what we've learned so far so that the flow is just it's just always moving. I'm Shananda, and I have been a part of the goddess movement for many years, but recently, I would say within the past 5 years, I've just been working on helping other women through not just my vision, but my vision, hearing other women, being with other women, and knowing that, they too are wanting something more, that they know that there's something more. And so through my business, the Divinity of Ananda's Intuitive Consulting, to work with them with many modalities, which has its roots in ancient wisdom and knowledge. And I have a program as well, and it's called the Blue Lotus Empowered Embodiment. And that's where I find, and they find too, that they're really ready and that they're serious. They find that they come to a point to where enough is enough and they want to try something new. Everything that they've tried is really not been working, or they still feel like they need an anchor, especially here in the West. I've been on, like I said, the path of the goddess for many years, and she's brought me in so many directions and in so many, like the word that just popped in is transformations within her, having me to understand her. And I've been asking to understand her. So, with being here and meeting our Guru Ji and being in the programs, this has been the first time I can actually say that, like, I feel her within the meditations that we do, right? I can just kind of like, especially just connecting and really truly understanding that she is a part of me. And I got to love every part of myself. I got to, like, if I really say that I love the mother, I love Davy, well, am I loving myself that way? We can have parts of ourselves that we don't like. Or like we were talking about perfectionism, we always have to be on, and Davy wants to play. In that play, we learn about ourselves like children, right? They learn about the world, they learn about their environment through play. And when I look at it, seeing how structured it is in the public schools, and it's just like we have to be, as children, have to be free flowing. And when we get an idea, yes, there should be some structure, but in general, the creativity comes when we're curious, and children are always curious. So with that, it's just like I want to be always curious. I think, that's where my adventurous spirit comes in, because I'm just like, what if, what if?
And why not?
And why not? And why not?
The feeling of always need to be empowered start feeling so exhausting within you.
Man, I believe it's because I remember, like, before I got into the space of having to be out there in the public's eye, right? Especially on social media. Like, I was just doing my thing and gathering and in person from time to time for like small circles. But I still, outside of the logistics, I was always open to like intuition, and I would just say whatever needs to happen is going to happen. But it didn't feel tiring for me or exhausting for me until like I got into the business aspect of it, and then just hearing a lot of different perspectives and philosophies and regarding like you have to do it this way, or you have to, like you're not going to get traction if you don't be here and here and here and here. And it's just like, I didn't know I was on stage. Yes, life is a stage, but it's also like it just felt like there was extra pressure because within myself it's just like, am I good enough? I see all of these other women doing the same thing, you know, but is that right for me? What's right for me? So having to just kind of like figure all of that out. And there's moments throughout the day, especially when I'm working on something, working with an idea and wanting to create content, a project out of it, not having to be all out there thinking about the ways to do it, but just thinking about what information that, is needed at this time. What are they wanting to hear? Not about what I want to give them. It's about what are they needing, because they're pulled, I feel, in so many directions too, because there's so many, no, you got to do it this way, you got to do it this way. But I actually talked to someone last week, kind of like in a similar thing. It's just like, I just told them, it's just like, you really have to be in your body to understand what really works for you. So I think that's when it was really exhausting for me, just really knowing that there's a lot of static, a lot of noise, but we have to just kind of like bring all of our energies within ourselves to not really be just kind of like dispersed all over, bring them focused and just listen within ourselves to really stop that feeling of just, that, here we go again.
How did you come to a conclusion that this is how I integrate myself? Do you have any tips or tricks that you use?
Prima, I'm still figuring it out. But when I ask myself that question, or when I'm just sitting, especially in meditation, like, I love when I go out in nature, like to the park that's near me that has these beautiful trees. I'm just laying there. And I'm really not thinking about anything else. But like an example, like last week, I'm out there and I'm playing music and I'm just kind of like looking, and then something pops in and I can feel like that's something important. So I just kind of like jot it down, but really just listening. So right now for myself, I know what's working is that I do get that time between like 30 minutes and an hour just to offload. And what I mean by that is like, breaking away from work or what I have to do, especially if I feel myself getting a little bit just kind of like anxious or frustrated. Like I know that that's time for me to just kind of like go and lay out and, really just look around. That's been something that works for me. So one tip I can just really suggest is that you just give yourself that opportunity to like step away and really appreciate the moment, the now moment, and get your toes in some grass.
Be with the sensory.
Be
Open
with
up
the
your senses.
sensory.
Yeah, open up your
Exactly.
senses.
Yes, because it's just like we're everything doesn't work for everyone. We're different, but I do know that we're still animalistic in nature. And when animals, they get overwhelmed, or whatever, they're laying down, they're chilling,
Yeah, that's true.
and they can't do anything else. And we need to just really get back into connection with our animal aspects.
That's very
Yeah.
interesting. Tell me more about that, the animal aspect of ourselves.
The animal aspect of ourselves, the anima and the animus, we as humans, we try to disconnect ourselves from the animals, right? I have a cat. I love animals. And I find that if I just sit and observe, it's like I can feel a part of myself waking up. So I'm getting into a little bit about like sun signs and Western astrology. I'm a Leo. Ever since I was a kid, like I loved cats. I wanted a cat. You know, my mom finally gave in, and just hearing their purr and just knowing that like, wow, this freaking beautiful creature doesn't really care about anything. It's very independent. It's not listening to me, like stuff like that. You're just being observant and understanding that I feel like as humans, we've just kind of like okay, some of our, animals, cats domesticated, but still you can see that wildness in them. You can tell that, especially a feral cat, and just look at like, huh, you know, I can understand and I can feel when I really want to do something, or like when I feel a certain way and I'm just wondering what that is. Like if I really want to just kind of like, let's just give an example, because I love to howl at the moon and I love to just kind of like run and scream, that's a part of myself that you wouldn't really, if I did it in a store, people would have questions, right? But sometimes we get that feeling, like, especially after a good scream or a good, like, let's just say if we were doing some hasana, it's just like that lion roar. We feel afterwards, we feel so much better, just there's a release, right? And so we understanding that part of ourselves. Yes, we're human. We still have these these parts of ourselves that are still just wild, you know, wild in a sense to where we don't want to be caged or locked in a box. And our mind can sometimes, be locked in a cage to where we feel like we want to do this, but what will they think? What would I look like, if I did that?
Yeah, because we want to be perfect. We want to be
Exactly.
powerful. We don't want to let go, and it's not healing if we come up
Yeah.
as a person who don't have it together all the time, right?
Right.
And
Right.
softness is lost in the feminine space. So I would like to know which part of you doesn't feel welcome in the feminine space.
The part of me that really wants to do without all of the formalities of society. Like sometimes, like I know there's a time and a space for everything, but like I feel like in the past, when I went into these spaces, I felt the energy, because that's the first thing that I always feel. Like, even if I'm not fully aware of it, or if I'm not really setting an intention, when I walk into a space, my senses, they become heightened until I can just kind of like tell, just like, oh, this isn't the space where I can really let loose or let my hair down, so to speak. Oh, I'm trying to find an example that happened recently. I think it was 2 years ago. I was invited to just kind of like do a mini tarot session for this event. And so I'm in my head, like before I went there, it's just like, oh my gosh, yes, I can really just not really worry about what I'm going to wear, because I already know. So I got dressed and I felt good. And I went in there and it's just like, I thought this was an event, but I just felt out of place, like no one was really just kind of like, I don't know, it just felt more businessy. And I'm just, I'm like, this doesn't match the name of the event or the theme, but I felt like I had to just kind of like tone it down, even though people knew me. And those who know me, they understand. They know it's just like when I'm not really being my authentic self, because like when I'm in a space where and people there, they know one another and we've been knowing one another for a while, right? It's just natural and it's free and there's no like heavy energy there, and we just kind of like we can be who we are. And that's the spaces that I like, where I can be who I am and not really worry about if someone is looking at, let's just say, the tattoo on my head or just whatever I have on and not really feeling out of place. But I really have felt that so much in my years, not feeling welcome in a feminine space. How about yourself? Like, have you ever encountered, like,
many times out of space and out of like exactly like how you explained. I get excited about certain event and I want to bring my best self out. And
yeah,
I come from a multicultural space. So
yes,
the understanding and the acceptance of a different culture when there's many colors and energies around, it just doesn't fit in easily. So
yeah,
I'm always like, this is who I am. This is my personality, and this is how I'm going to be. It's either I try to fit in and become ship like them, or I be the lioness and say, "Hey, it's okay. If you know me, you know me." But it takes lots of time and effort and the power to be alone for a bit
yeah,
instead of always trying to fit in because we always want to fit in. We
yeah,
love
right?
love that attention that we could get by being accepted.
Yes,
But
exactly.
is that what we want? Is that where we want to go? Is that the
Right.
real integrated part of us? Is that really nourishment for our soul? If we just give it all the time to be part of a tribe or community or a space, whatever the space that we choose to be in,
Yeah.
is that like if we choose to be quite opposite of just our authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
what are the things that we gain that we lose? We need to like look at this, check our energies and feel the thing. But usually we can't because the world is like so fast and everybody wants to just fit in instead of fighting for who they want to be. That's
Yes.
why building your own tribe, your own community, knowing who you are, and
Mm-hmm.
calling in that same kind of people, it saves lots of energy, lots of effort. And I think growing up, most of us, we don't have that. Especially, we also come from the era of not having social media. So
Right.
it's very easy for us to go and say, okay, if you don't want to talk to me, I'm going to go and find my own people out there on my own. Some people can do it, some people can't. So that's been quite a bit of challenge.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought up, just kind of like being in a space that's multicultural. Like, even with myself, family wise, like I'm of mixed race, but and it's very interesting how I had to navigate that as a child. And I'm thinking about it because on my mom's side, like, you know, her brother, his kids, my cousins, like when we used to get together, was like it was very interesting because they didn't think that we were, like this ethnicity or why were we so much different in, skin color versus it was just very interesting because like I tell people, like if you came to a family reunion of mine, you've got like a rainbow and you've even got like, somebody might be like, who is this white lady there? Like, that's my aunt, like so for me it was let's just say a part of who I was. And then going out and being in the world and getting the opportunity to be introduced to other cultures. Like I was really grateful to have had I guess, the upbringing where my father he worked in the airlines business. So like, it was very cool seeing that how many people, especially of different cultures that he knew. So he just kind of like, he opened up for that for me. So when it was time for me to really just kind of like take it another step, at a place where I worked, there was this person. and her name was Alayama, and she was here from, I think it was the northern part of, I can't really remember where in India, but I remember the northern part. But she was with her husband, and they were here in the state because he was a professor. And she was the most beautiful woman, and we talked, we had conversations, went up to her house, and I had dinner with my kids. I told her my interests, and I told her how, like, like learning everything about that I could about their culture, how it fascinated me. She even gave me, I think it was 4 or 5 of her saris, because I told her I was going to the temple, and that, I was just wearing just my long skirts, and she was just like, here, I have a gift for you. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So she showed me everything and showed me how to wrap it. And when I wore it, I just really felt so beautiful, like a goddess. I really felt like a goddess. So now, coming forward, like, if I wear that now, and I still, like, I have pieces that I wear, especially when I'm doing, like, just ceremonies. I don't want to have someone say that I'm appropriating, because I respect, you know, the Hindu culture. That's a part of me, And so that's a space where I try to just be very, very mindful of how some people think.
People have this cultural appreciation or appropriation. It's
Appropriation,
always
yeah.
happening. But you know where your origin story comes from. As long as
Right.
you know that you're not hurting others, you can
Yeah.
tell that this is given by a friend of mine who
Mm-hmm.
truly understands how passionate I am about all this things that we are doing together. That's where I come from. So I think the inner knowing is pretty much important for all of us
Yeah.
when and how we do it. I've been in a space where cultural appropriation happens so many times,
Yes.
and that doesn't feel right at all. So
You know.
that's a topic on its own: cultural
Yeah.
appropriation and cultural appreciation. So that is definitely like you are called to do something because you have the right to learn that knowledge. That's why you're doing certain things. When you see it from that point of view, that changes a lot of perspective for a lot of people.
Yes.
Because at least in the Indian culture, we never really look at certification or are you
Mm.
qualified? Are you passionate about it? Do you really want to do this? If you really want to do this, come and learn. It's
Yep.
not like have you passed an exam. Most of the time, if you're willing to learn and you want to learn and you have certain capability, especially discipline, and you're consistent, you're
Yes.
accepted in many ways, right?
Yep.
If I'm in a circle of a woman and they all know that what I'm doing, it's because I appreciate what I'm doing. As long as we come from the place of respect, I think that will translate. As we have learned that we are transmuting energy,
Yes.
the energy, the silent communication, the non-verbal communication that we are making, that's what I think is very important. How we feel when you feel like a goddess wearing a sari, that's how you're going to come across to me when I see you wearing a sari.
Mm.
If
Yes.
you feel like I don't know what I'm doing, I have to wear this because they told me so. I have to wear this because now I'm going to a temple and doing this ceremony. Of course, it will translate like that. We'll act in that way, and the words that come out after that is going to reflect upon that. There is this saying that actions speak louder than words,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But I just want to revert that and say, have you always checked if your words are in alignment with your action?
And align your action.
So if
Bingo.
your words are in alignment with in your action, that means you're feeling it. It's coming out. Because you're always checking. You're feeling inside, you're checking inside. And you're in alignment, that's what is going to come out as an action. That's something that we can check against
Yes.
whenever we feel doubt doing something because we are so attracted to it.
Agree. Agree. And as you were talking, it also seemed like, like if your words, if you're not confident, and if you haven't truly decided that's what you're going to do, and you're just kind of like saying those words, that you're going to feel that too, and it's not going to be in alignment. You're not sure about what you just said, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it just translates differently because
Yeah.
women, we have the subtle energy to feel a lot of things and we pick it up. Be
Yes.
aligned, and you will come across as a person who don't really need to bring people into the same frame again. They
Yes.
are in your frame because you're feeling great.
Mm.
But going back to the conversation of
Yeah.
being empowered, have you ever collapsed like behind the scene of always trying to be super powerful, always in the healing mode? Have you ever feel that?
I would say yes. I feel that we are vessels. We when we because everyone has that ability to heal. But when you have the calling, it's just like that's when we kind of like either have to say yes to the calling or be like, I don't want to step into helping others. So, and healing can take many different forms. Like this conversation is a healing conversation. I think people, they have their own idea of what healing is. Sometimes when I hear myself or when people ask me, are you a healer? Like, I'm just like, how do I answer that? Because, like, we all have this ability, but, yes, I'm a facilitator to bring others to the knowledge that they can heal themselves, right? And so for me, I never really um wanted to look at myself as a healer. Felt something about it didn't feel like, I don't know, like it wasn't me running from like, the gifts that I can bring or what have you. It was just like aligning with something that I felt like the outside world kind of like viewed as something else, if that makes sense. So like that collapse for me is just like for me to look like me shutting down or just kind of like not really diving deep into my intuition, even though I can't really run from it when things pop in. Like I'm just like, oh wow. But as far as just kind of like if I was in a crowd and be like, I've got to say this, and I'm not gonna do that. Like I saw this and blah blah blah. Because like but like, and I know you probably understand a little bit of this. It's just like people can feel that there's something a little different about us, right? We have this type of energy signature. So we're always trying to just kind of like stay in the background or not really just kind of like be seen anyway.
Even though we are Leo.
Yeah. Um, so I think like a just a collapse or just kind of like really just being like overstimulated for me. It's like I tend to just withdraw and not really say anything, but I know that there's a balance in that too because if I'm doing it because of external pressures, I try not to put myself in situations where like I got to feel like I'm always on or blah, blah, blah. Like if I'm with a client, then that's different, right? And then still, I'm sitting in the back and I'm allowing them to explore themselves and get to the depth of where they can feel that they have an intuitive nature about them, right? Like I can't be just kind of like, well, I think you should do it this way or do it that. No, like I'm there to facilitate and suggest when the time is right, but never force anybody. Just say, for example, well, I see that you, Prima, have this beautiful smile, and, do you think you can, like, find it in your day to maybe, like, smile, like, a lot more? Like, you know, in a way, to just kind of like bring that feeling of joy within your body. Just kind of like put something like that. If I see something that I feel that is easy for them to really embody and really get used to, rather than like hide it. So if you just kind of like you smile naturally, but someone catches you and you're like doing this, like what is that about? To explore what that is about. And so, yeah, just to kind of like wrap that part of it up, like I really just still walking that balance. And when I feel within my body that things are not in congruence or in alignment with what I'm feeling versus like what I'm seeing out there, like I really just kind of like, I just need to just kind of like go within and just breathe and just know that I don't really have to do anything. Just kind of like bring me to a space to where I'm not seeing myself as having to like do. Because I think that's forcing too. We can get to a point to where we feel that we have to force our innate gifts in order to keep them alive or whatever, but that's just our natural prana that's moving within us. And that energy is going to know when it has to be, just kind of like discharged. And we don't have to. It's just like I'm seeing all these images and I'm trying to just kind of like translate them. So I just kind of like I was seeing like a movie, like if somebody had like their finger pointed trying to make a rock move and they're like some crazy. We can force ourselves to a point to where we feel like we have to just kind of like be this certain person instead of just being who we are, being human, being sensitive to nature, how we're supposed to be anyway. And I can understand where it can be that some people is just like this is a superpower because we've been so disconnected and we've been so indoctrinated and domesticated, taken away from how we're truly supposed to be. We can, like, I'm seeing sometimes it's just like we were already supposed to be just advanced in our telepathic powers, right?
That was a conversation. Wow, that went a lot of places. So the frame that I'm getting from this is if you're suffering in silent pressure, all you need to do is take out the pressure and be in silence.
That's really it. It's like release the valve from on the pressure cooker. Just kind of like let all that steam go.
So that was the conversation with Sananda today, and I hope that you got some great output from our conversation together. And let us know how you feel in the comments below. Thank you for joining us, Sananda. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Prince. This was so much fun, and I can't wait until we have an opportunity to do it again.